Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just say, I think if there's a question if this should be in or out, if the private companies are doing work in the Army, that really ought to be addressed to the Defense Department and the State Department.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, would you yield for a question?
I would.
Since I wasn't here during the Clinton administration, did Mr. Waxman and this committee investigate Secretary Brown's crash in which he was killed? That was a military flight, C-130, I believe. Was that investigated?
I wasn't here. I was not here at that point, but I understand the question.
Crashes happen in bad weather.
The gentleman would yield to me.
I'd be happy.
That crash was investigated, and the gentleman would be able to get the report of that investigations.
Let me yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from North Carolina.
I thank the Ranking Member for yielding. Mr. Prince, can you describe to the committee the nature of your contract, who your client is in Iraq?
In Iraq, we work for the Department of State.
And what is the service you provide for the Department of State?
We operate under the Worldwide Personal Protective Services contract, and we are charged with protecting diplomats, reconstruction officials, and visiting CODELs, members of Congress, and their staffs.
And in the last, since in this calendar year, how many missions have you had in Iraq?
1,873.
How many incidents occurred during those 1,873 movements?
Only 56 incidents.
All right. And a movement is, for instance, you take a member of Congress lands at the airstrip, they're transported to the embassy. That's one movement. Is that?
Yes, sir.
All right. And 56 incidents out of 1,873 movements in a war zone. Is that correct?
Resulted in the discharge of one of our guys' weapons.
Which, those 56 incidents, does that mean that they shot at someone? Describe what an incident is.
Yes, we don't even record all the times that our guys receive fire. The vehicles get shot at on a daily basis, multiple times a day. So that's not something we even record. In this case, we have an incident is a defensive measure. You're responding to an IED attack followed by small arms fire. Most of the attacks we get in Iraq are complex, meaning it's not just one bad thing; it's a host of bad things. Car bomb followed by small arms attack. RPGs followed by sniper fire. An incident occurs typically when our men fear for their life. They're not able to extract themselves from the situation. They have to use sufficient defensive fire to get off the X, to get off that place where the bad guys have tried to kill Americans that day.
So in 1,873 missions, 56 incidents occurred, which means potentially it means the Blackwater individual, this former soldier in most cases, discharges the weapon, perhaps in the air. Is that a possibility?
It's not likely into the air. It's going to be directed at someone that's shooting at us. Or another real problem, the recent Washington Post series on IEDs in Iraq, 81,000 IED attacks. The bad guys have figured out how to make a precision weapon. You take a car, you pack it with explosives, and you put a suicidal person in there that wants to drive into the back of a convoy and blow themselves up.
Additional question here. So those 56 incidents pretty much all involved returning fire. A caravan is being shot at, for instance, and you would return fire. Or a potential car bomb is coming at you, and you're returning.
A potential car bomb, yes. A defensive fire or a potential car bombs going, potentially coming near you, you have to warn them off. There's a whole series in the use of force continuum. Our guys are briefed, and they abide by. They're briefed on it through their training back here in the United States. Every time they leave the wire, every time they launch on that mission before they go in the morning, they get the mission brief, what they're going to do, who they're protecting, where they're going, the intelligence, what to be on the lookout for, where there have been particularly bad areas in the city, and the use of force continuum, those rules of engagement.
Use of force continuum, is that dictated by the Department of State?
Yes.
And you use their rules of engagement, the commonly used term?
Yes, sir.
Is that that's similar to the Department of Defense rules of engagement?
Yes, they're essentially the same.
Okay, so you
Department of Defense rules for contractors. We do not have the same as a U.S. soldier at all.
Okay. And in the report that I have in 2006, you had 6,254 missions and 38 incidents, which means one of the contractors, one of the former soldiers who is now in State Department Protective Service, they returned fire. So that would be less than 1% of missions involved returning fire. Question here. How long has Blackwater been involved in Iraq? How long have you had this contract in Iraq?
We started there first working for DOD under the CPA, and then I believe in 2005 it transitioned from CPA over to Department
How many
of State.
individuals under your protective service have been injured or killed?
27 dead and hundreds wounded. And
How many individuals
under our care?
under your care that you are protecting?
Zero.
Zero.
Zero, sir.
0 individuals that Blackwater's protected have been killed in a Blackwater transport.
That's correct.
0.
Zero.
That is, I think, the operable number here. Your client is the State Department. The State Department has a contract with you to provide protective service for their visitors. For instance, CODELs, ambassadors, and runs the gamut. And you've had 0 individuals under your care and protection killed. I think that is a very important number that we need to discuss here, Mr. Chairman, and that should be, a testament to the service that these former veterans, these veterans
5 minutes
that are currently working for Blackwater, and I'm happy to yield back to the ranking member.